I am Ahonu, and this is my lovely Aingeal Rose.
Hello.
And we are with you today to discuss and teach about soulmates. And it's a very important subject because our world is built on relationships of all kind. And we have developed this as a result of requests from people over the years that contact Aingeal Rose for readings, for Akashic record readings, asking specifically about their relationships. Who is he to me? Who are my children to me? Am I a soulmate? Is he a soulmate? Is she a soulmate? What relationship are my father, my children, my relatives? All those kinds of questions to do with soulmates. And we're going to tackle them today. And just as a little teaser, there is much more to this subject than what we can present in this video today. And that whole subject is all about twin flames. And that is a whole course in its own right. We will be tackling it because it's one beautiful progression from where we are today with soulmates. But let's begin. Aingeal Rose, we're going to talk about soulmates and soulmate relationships and the journey of consciousness through soulmates.
Well, we first want to ask everybody if you could just turn off your cell phones for the next, half an hour, perhaps. Make sure the children are away or your husband's away if he's not listening. Okay. And just put your full attention on this subject because it's quite interesting.
Yes.
So first we want to talk about relationships in general. And the world is built on relationships, as we know. And we are actually all in a relationship with each other, whether we want to believe that or not. So we all affect each other. But in the beginning, Ahonu, I don't know about you, but I'm sure you've had many relationships when you were younger. And I have as well. All right. So some were friends, some were boyfriends, but I wouldn't call them soulmates. They were just people that showed up in my life. We were all in the same environment. So let's just say we were all in the same cosmic soup together, let's just say, but they weren't necessarily soulmates. Okay. So then we moved on to spiritual relationships, and that does encompass soulmates. So how do you tell when you have a soulmate relationship? Do you have any idea, huh?
You know, this has always been a difficulty for me and for a lot of people also, is determining or discerning what is a soulmate relationship and what isn't. And thankfully, we're now in a position to be able to explain to you what the differences are. But before we get to those actual differences, we want to also introduce the possibility that something might be fate or it might be destiny. And we're going to be explaining the difference between those two things too as we go along today. But first, we want to talk about this desire for love. What is this desire for love that everybody has?
Well, I think it's ingrained in every living creature, Ahonu, whether it's humans or animals. Everything wants to be included. Everything wants to be loved. We all need love. In fact, you can just look at the studies that they've done with children, for example, that are abused and put in closets and how they don't grow and they don't develop. And the same is true with, food we eat or anything in our environment. We all, because we're all in a relationship with each other, we all need to be nurturing and holding the highest esteem, I shall say, the highest standards of love, not just for ourselves, but in general.
Yes.
So everybody has that. It's just inbuilt. And you see that now in the animal kingdom where animals that would normally be enemies are now becoming friends. I just posted a picture on Facebook the other day that somebody posted. It was a picture of a little kitten actually with its arm around a little duck, a little chick.
Yes, the most bizarre relationships.
That's right. So you're seeing that more and more often that, natural enemies in the animal kingdom are now loving each other. So something's definitely changing in our world, and that is part and parcel to why we're discussing soulmates today, and further why we will be discussing twin flames, because they're literally out of this universe. Okay, but first, in this series, we're going to be just discussing the implications of a soulmate relationship.
Right. We want to touch on the law of attraction. Most people are familiar with that law of attraction, and they would have heard of the movie The Secret, for example. And we want to look at that and find, is that what a relationship is? Is it purely attraction? Is it a sexual attraction? Is that what constitutes a soulmate relationship?
The law of attraction?
The law of attraction.
Well, I think there's a method to this, and there's a progression in your life with your soul. There's no accident that certain things happen to you a certain way, and you've even had a hand in planning that, and that's when we get into destiny and talking about that. But the truth of the universe is that like attracts like, and you may have heard that in many different phrases, but it's the truth. Everything is that you experience in your life has to do with your own consciousness. Whether you're in a relationship or you're not, whether you attract a soulmate or you attract nobody, okay, it's still all up to your own soul plan. And I want you to come away with that knowledge so that you can take your power back.
Mm-hmm. Some people feel that something is missing from their lives, and that could be a partner. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people come to us for consulting or for advice, because they want to know what's missing in my life. There seems to be some kind of a spiritual relationship that's missing, or something deeper about the relationship that they're currently in. And if you have that feeling that something's missing, you're in the right place, because we're going to set out to answer that particular question for you. So when we talk about spiritual relationships, Aingeal Rose, we want to try and move this away from the physical attraction. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's part of what it builds us.
It's inherent in soulmates.
It's inherent in soulmates. Absolutely. Yeah. Nothing wrong with it. But what we want to try and do is to let's elevate our view, our awareness of what that soulmate relationship, if it's based on attraction, what else it might mean. Because a lot of times we feel that there is something more, or that there's something missing in that current relationship. And that could be the spiritual aspect of the relationship. Now, we're not going all religious on you here. So let's be clear. We're talking about something more satisfying, something bigger, something that is deeper, something that has a bigger meaning to you, and
it's recognizable.
Yeah. Lasts longer than a one-night stand kind of thing. So that's where we want to try. So what are spiritual?
Ahonu knows about those.
What are spiritual relationships, Aingeal Rose?
So a spiritual relationship is really anything that is designed to help you grow in your life. In other words, it cares about your personal self-awareness, your personal growth up the ascension ladder, because there is an actual ladder of ascension that we do go through as a soul. All right, but they are recognizable by their obvious deep connections, their obvious impact. When you run into somebody who is a potential spiritual soulmate to you, you usually know it in some way. Mm-hmm. Okay, whether it is strong attraction or it's strong repulsion, they have that quality of hitting you between the eyes, and you're saying, what is it about this person? I know them. They're so familiar to me. I've been with them before. Mm-hmm. People usually find themselves saying that.
And what would be the purpose of those kinds of relationships in terms of the bigger picture, as well as the local one right here in 3D?
Well, okay, so let me tell you a little bit about my own life and how I knew that I was meeting soulmates. Okay, so the first one started when I was 18. And up until that time, I was like any other teenager. I had boyfriends, I had crushes. I had, went through my own, let's just say I went through my own personal karmic things throughout my life. But the first time I actually met somebody who I would be considered a strong soulmate, it was not until I was a senior in high school, and this person was in my high school all 4 years. I just never saw him. I literally never saw him until the 4th year. And we were at a dance, and I just happened to see him dance, and I thought he was so sexy and unusual that
Oh no! What's his address?
I went up to him and I asked him out Monday. I said, "When are you taking me out?" Okay, so I want to just make the point that this was a relationship that was fast. In other words, the first night we went out, we knew we were getting married. Now, how often does that happen? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Where you meet somebody the first night and you say, "This is it. This is my partner." Okay, so our whole relationship probably lasted, I'd say, a year total. Because during that time, we had this intense love relationship. We graduated high school, we got married, and within 3 months, he was murdered at his job. Okay, so the whole thing abruptly ended. But up until that point, all I wanted to be was a mom. I just wanted to get married, live in my nice little house, and have children. But that event in my life was a turning point for me. because it brought me to my first psychic. There was a lot of lack of clarity about what happened that night. So I went to this psychic for answers.
Mm-hmm.
As it turned out, this started me on a metaphysical journey. This started me exploring other worlds and consciousness and what happens after your death and all that. Okay, so that catapulted me. And the teacher that I ended up going to, that same psychic ended up being my first teacher. She was a wonderful lady. Well, anyway, I started to learn and grow and find out about other dimensions and all sorts of spiritual things. That I personally started doing my own research. Okay, so fast forward from that, you know, the next person that I was with and that I married, I had my I had my son with, okay? And would I say that person was a soulmate? Yes, I do. And unfortunately, I have to say that maybe it was for the purpose of bringing my son in. And he wouldn't like to hear that. He didn't like to hear that back then. But when I look at my son, him and I are soulmates. How do I know that him and my son are soulmates? Because we have the same spiritual heart. We have this deep, deep, deep connection that nobody can explain.
Yes.
All right. So that was number two. Okay. So then the next relationship I had was somebody who was a catalyst for me learning about how you can have a negative soulmate. And this is important because some soulmates come into your life just to wreak havoc. They come in to challenge you. They come in to teach you.
That's why somebody who can be a soulmate, who you perceive as an enemy.
That's right. Could be a soulmate.
It's very interesting to watch those dynamics too.
Right. So this man taught me about abuse. Now, I wasn't physically abused, but I was mentally and emotionally abused, as were my children. Mm-hmm. So this, again, keep in mind, I was on the spiritual path the whole time. And it took me 17 years of being married to that man who, by the way, gave me two beautiful daughters. So it had its benefits as well as its drawbacks. But it took me 17 years to get this lesson that you say no to abuse.
Yes.
Okay, so every single man I started to meet after that was a soulmate. And some of them, the very first time I met a soulmate who I was telepathic with came after my marriage to that previous man. And I was blown away because some of the problems in my enemy soulmate relationship was that I was not seen, I was not recognized, I was not valued. And along comes this man suddenly.
Like a rescuer, in a sense.
Who was a lot of years younger than me.
And it was pulling out psychic abilities in you, telepathic abilities.
Well, he was just telepathic with me. Right. He picked me up, you know, and make a long story short, I naturally assumed that because that attraction was so telepathic and so intimate and honest, that should be a romantic relationship. Mm-hmm. Okay. Right. And what I found out was, no, it was not meant to be, because our personalities did not match our soul connection. In other words, his way of life, the things that he was into, the things that I was into were totally different. We would have never made it on a day-to-day basis. That was extremely hard for me, Ahonu. It took me a couple of years to get over. Because who did he pick? He picked a woman who was a stripper and a belly dancer. Because that's what he cared about.
But it's interesting, though, Aingeal Rose, that you should tell that story, because another interesting thing about soulmate relationships is that not only can they be enemies in terms of catalyzing you to make decisions and choices, they can also help you realize your desires. Now, I have a story in that way, because all my life I always wanted to be a horseman. I wanted to be into horsemanship, and I wanted to do show jumping and so on. I would never have done that had I not met a particular soulmate who happened to own 22 horses and was into show jumping and so on. And therefore, I realized my life's desire. I did it, and it was fantastic. But it was interesting in the sense that once I had achieved that, once I felt I had done that and manifested that desire, it seemed like that was the sole purpose of the relationship, and that it was done. So right. What we'd like you to do is to ask yourself these questions. Do you feel that there's a purpose to your soulmate relationships?
Or have you met soulmates?
Yeah. And are you able to discern if this person is a soulmate or not? or if it's something else, or if there's something missing. So ask yourself these questions, and then you'll find what the purpose is to these soulmate relationships in your life.
Right. So, yeah, just going back to the purpose, they actually do show up in your life to move you forward in some way, whether it's through a negative lesson or whether it's through something totally out of the ordinary. All right, that is their purpose.
Yeah. And this is what leads you in to see the bigger picture. These relationships always help you see the bigger purpose in your life. And that's a very important thing for us to do for each other in terms of our soulmate relationships.
Yeah, because you want to look at reflections that you have and what they reflect in you, and well, a myriad of other things. Some of them are just relationships that were interrupted in other lives that need completion in this life or need to continue.
Yes.
Okay.
So here's a little exercise for you to do, and it's an important little one. We encourage you to do it, and that is to list the people in your life that you feel are soulmates. Write them down now. It's an important thing. Write them down. List those people.
And they don't have to be romantic.
Don't have to be romantic.
They can be parents. They can be siblings. They can be friends. They can be teachers. You could be the teacher. Any and all of the above types of relationships.
Okay, so let's spend a moment or two, Aingeal Rose, speaking about fate versus destiny. Now, I myself have to admit that I find it sometimes difficult to know the difference between these things. But I know that Aingeal Rose is well studied in the difference, and she's going to give us the dictionary definition of what fate is and what destiny is.
Okay, well, fate is really when you feel that you have things happen to you in your life that you've had no control over, nor do you have any control over. It's the same as saying, well, that relationship was fated and it was a horrible thing and there's nothing I could do about it. Or this event happened to me in my life and I didn't have anything to do with it either. It just happened and I must be cursed, or I must have a spell on me in some way, or I must have bad karma.
That's fate. That's fate. Where you think, as you said, I'm fated. I'm fated, yes.
It's fatal.
It's fatal. Oh my God.
Okay.
That's fate.
Okay.
And destiny?
Right. So destiny is actually something that is planned for you, all right, to move you ahead in a positive way. And you do have a hand in creating a destiny for yourself before you come into incarnation. So what those are is there a series of events that seem to happen or turn up in your life.
But you have a choice around them. So
you do have a choice. You don't have to accept them.
Right. So it's like coming to a crossroads in a sense. And if you take the right fork in the road, a whole series of circumstances are going to unfold as a result of that choice. So that's a destiny if you go down that road. But if you've decided to go down the left fork, that's a whole other destiny that's down this road. So that's a way to help decide.
And it's not that one is right or wrong.
Sure.
Okay. So like in the example of my first husband, that to me felt like a destiny, even though it had a fatal ending. It was a destiny in terms of, if I had met that man, I would not have gotten on my spiritual path at 18 years old.
Right.
And I think that was planned. It was a destiny that happened to me, along with other things that have occurred. You know, everything from when did I awaken X-ray vision, for example, that happened at a particular time through a dream where I was, I won't tell you the whole details, but basically it was guided by higher beings. I've had many situations in my life like that suddenly appeared. Okay. Or I was allowed to go on trips that were paid for suddenly. All those things are destiny. Somebody comes in to help you at just the right moment. Who's a soulmate? Those are destinies. The timing is exact. There's not a minute before and a minute after. These things are planned to help push you along in some way. They're good.
The one way that I do understand destiny is to think of its root word, which is like destination. So in other words, the destination that you arrive at, you've chosen all the way along the way. You can say, well, I want to spend a vacation in Turkey or in Acapulco. They're destinations. So you've made a choice to go there.
However, they are potentials.
Potentials.
In other words, what you do with that destiny when it shows up is really what determines if you achieve victories in your soul or if you regress. So choice, in other words, you don't just have a destiny and you don't sit back on your laurels and you don't have to worry about it. Yeah. They're set up to move you forward, so there's usually choice involved.
So you can begin to see now that there is a bigger picture here with all of your relationships, that there is more to soulmate relationships than what you may have heretofore thought. And this is what we're doing. We're opening up a whole series of potentials, a whole series of possibilities for you with your relationships and your potential future relationships. So, Aingeal Rose, we've gone through the difference between fate and destiny, but one of the important things about all of this is that everybody, no matter whether it's fate or destiny, or whether it's a soulmate relationship or not, the fact is that everybody deserves love.
Everybody deserves life.
Yeah.
So don't think you have a destiny to never have a relationship.
Right.
If you're not in one, if you're not in a deep, don't think that's a destiny, because everybody deserves love. That's the one fact about the cosmos that is true. You may have had fated experiences, but again, remember we told you when we were talking about the law of attraction that everything's in your consciousness. And part of this whole soulmate process, and even up to twin flames and up to the whole enlightenment process, is about our own consciousness. So we will be referring back a lot as we go into our course further in the next few weeks. We will be getting into detail about what is our karmic stuff, what's our issues, how do we stop ourselves from love, but it is never because you don't deserve love.
Now, we say to you in terms of what's going on in your life right now, go for it, because none of these things are accidents. You have set them all up. And Aingeal Rose did mention a word a little while ago when she said about it could be coming from a past life influence. And I know some of our listeners and some of our viewers may have some kind of an aversion to the possibility of past lives. I know I had. Coming from Holy Catholic Ireland, I remember thinking, past lives? No. But now I've seen it bear out in my life, in my own life. I've seen how in our case, there's been many past life memories would surface. And for that reason, I now accept that we don't just arrive here, die, and that's the end of it. There is a bigger picture going on. There's much more to our lives than what we heretofore have understood. And that's why your relationships right now are so important and are not to be dismissed. You can say no to them, but understand them, understand what's going on from the bigger picture, and go for it, and go for it in a big way. So one of the things that we want to give you as a gift from us to you is a heart-centered meditation. And this is something that Aingeal Rose has narrated and developed. And I'd like her to tell you about it, because it's a free gift for you.
Yes, we're gifting this to you. It's a very short, maybe 15-minute meditation. It's designed to take you deep into your heart center and have you take a look at it. And so it will determine whether you have an open heart, whether you have a closed heart, whether you have memories that are in there that you haven't reconciled. But it's all designed for a little bit of heart exploration, even as a preparation for if you decide to come along with us on this journey of consciousness into soulmate relationships, into their depth, into their possibilities, into their meaning, into attracting them. This is a little bit of a preempt meditation for you to begin to take a look at what is the condition of your own heart.
Beautiful. And we're going to also, Aingeal Rose has actually explained how that meditation helps, which is fantastic. And do connect with us, because we will send it to you and you'll receive it in your mailbox. And that's, as I said, our gift to you. So let's do a quick summary, Aingeal Rose, here. But before we do, I just want to say that Aingeal Rose did mention about our course. And we will be coming to explain a little bit more about that in a moment. But right now, let's just go back over quickly what we've covered, because we have looked at relationships in general, and we're talking about physical relationships here, sexual relationships, the law of attraction, that kind of relationship. And then we branched into looking at them in terms of stepping back a little bit and having a look at it from a spiritual perspective. What's going on here? And then we took a look at the bigger picture when Aingeal Rose explained the difference between fate, a fateful relationship, and a destined relationship. We looked at both of those. So now we want to pose to you what's next, because I know that's the question that's going to be in your mind. So Aingeal Rose, tell us, please, what's next?
All right, so for the next 3 weeks, the next 3 modules that we've created, we're going to be looking at, we're going to go into more detail about how do you tell a soulmate and when do you go into a soulmate relationship, what are they about, are they friends, are they meant to be romantic? So there'll be a high degree of discrimination. We're going to talk about karma and how your own personal law of cause and effect has worked in your life, in your past lives, if you still have lingering things going on today. We'll look at soulmate relationships in the sense of, are they continuations for you for a past life? Are they enemies where forgiveness is required or some type of a healing? Are some of your soulmate connections in terms of your family, are they ancestral? What does that mean for you? Okay, we're going to get into how the chakras relate to soulmate relationships and how a particular soulmate relationship could be centered only around you mastering a particular chakra or your partner as well. And so we're going to go in depth about the implications of that.
And let me just say also that if these concepts like karma and chakras, for example, are unfamiliar to you, don't worry, because we do go into great detail in terms of helping you understand what they are and recognizing them and how they impact your relationships. So we will be covering that.
You will be getting more meditations each module. You'll have one that explores your past lives. You can check in with people you know now and do this meditation to see if you've known them before. So that will be there for you as well. And we're also going to explain how your soulmate relationships, and let me explain it in terms of dimensions. Soulmate relationships, let's just say, they still have to do with mostly earth life. In other words, 3D dimension, law of attraction, law of cause and effect, karma that you've created on the 3D dimension. They are not the same as a soulmate relationship, which goes into a whole different dimension. So soulmates we're still in a duality, we're still in the polarity, and we still are learning and growing as we go up the ascension ladder. But these relationships, depending on what happens with them and what you do with them, whether they propel you forward or they regress you, they are ultimately designed to prepare you for reunification with your twin flame, which we'll discuss again at another time.
That twin flame possibility is always something that we will move you towards and help you understand what's going on. So
what we do just want to mention also that at the end of this course, what we want you to come away with, we want you to clearly see, and we will be doing it through different, like I said, meditations or exercises, as well as Ahonu and I explaining things. What we want you to understand is the destiny of your own life. We want you to see how you've created, how there's an order to it, how you have choice in it, and how everything has really been ultimately designed for your good.
Yes. The course that we're speaking about here, that we're presenting to you now, includes video, it includes audio, and includes PDF downloads. And that's important because we're giving it to you in multiple formats. In other words, some people prefer to watch this kind of thing. Some people prefer to listen to it. And as we know...
Except don't do a meditation in the car.
Except don't do a meditation when you're operating any machinery.
Any motor vehicle.
Yeah, but in multiple formats. In other words, some people prefer to read it too, so we'll give it to you in PDF format as well. And then it also includes bonus meditation. So we've already mentioned about the heart center meditation, but you'll find throughout this course that we do drop in a lot of unannounced gifts of various kinds.
We're going to have some great manifesting exercises too.
Absolutely. And one of those, actually, if you don't mind,
No, I do mind. Don't tell them.
You do mind? It's a secret. It's a surprise. We'll keep it for you as a surprise then. Let's do that. Surprise. And the one final thing about the way we're presenting this also, people these days now with mobile technology and so on are very familiar with the fact that a lot of these are accessible to you 24/7, 365 days of the year. And also you have lifetime access. In other words, we're not putting the clock on anything here that says you've only got 3 months access, 6 months. No. Lifetime access. You get this course. You can look at it anytime you like, spend as long as you like going through it. But we do like to try and cover the material over a 3-module period. Now that could be 3 days, could be 3 weeks, depends on how you choose to go through the material.
Right.
Yeah. So we're presenting you now with an opportunity to join with us in this journey of consciousness through soulmate relationships. You'll find a buy button on the screen or down below with a link, and we would encourage you so that you will understand what's going on in your life in terms of relationships and how to see them from the bigger picture and how you can benefit hugely spiritually.
Just to remind people too that this is just as much about soulmate relationships as it is about your relationship with yourself.
So there you are. We are delighted to have you with us, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening
and watching today. And we appreciate you being with us, and we look forward to seeing you on the other side and to working through this journey of consciousness through your soulmate relationships. Thank you.
Thank
bye-bye.
you.